Good evening, everyone. It's social distancing at the chamber, also known as Happy Hour with Hammer, joined by, as usual, our CEO, Glenn Hammer. Special guest tonight, folks, you're only going to get a still photo from Government Affairs Vice President Courtney Coolidge. Courtney, thanks for joining.
Thanks for having me again.
Glenn, congratulations. This is our 20th episode.
No, it's great to do the show with you, and it's great to have Courtney on, and I'm glad she's smiling in the photo.
Right.
I'm happy.
All right. Let's talk three things. Glenn, I want to talk about a recent op-ed that you wrote as part of your column. Courtney, we should talk about a survey that you've put together for businesses across the state. And then let's also talk about what after April 30th looks like. There's some news on that front. So, Glenn, topic number one, your column, SOS for Small Business. You've been talking about it column after column, the need to get the Paycheck Protection Program right and the need to get EIDL right. You write that one's off to a rocky start, but there's some path to improvement. Another one you say is completely hit the rocks. So, Glenn, before we get into the ways we can improve that, just give us the premise of the column that you put out yesterday.
That our businesses are unraveling as we do this show. You know, we've got 30 million small businesses in America. We know we have at least 1 million jobs in Arizona tied to small businesses. The average small business doesn't have more than a month worth of liquidity, basically. So these programs that Congress passed as part of the $2.2 trillion program, they have to work. And the marquee program, the Paycheck Protection Program, the $349 billion program, is really designed in a very smart way. And that's to keep employers and employees connected for a 2-month, 8-week period of time where in a forgivable loan fashion, payroll costs, rent and utilities are covered if employers keep their payroll. But here's the catch. They have to be able to get accepted for the loan, and they have to be able to get the funds, and they have to be able to get those quickly.
Right. Glenn, you identified 4 things that need to happen. You talked about, first, a concerted effort to streamline. You talked about increasing the speed. You talked about improving a relationship for perhaps the unbanked or those bank customers who don't have a lending relationship, and then the appropriation of more dollars. So let's start with the first one. There should be a concerted effort to streamline the entire process for both programs.
Yeah, so the Paycheck Protection Program, we'll talk about the EIDL program, which has unfortunately just been a catastrophic disaster up to this point. But the Paycheck Protection Program, this is going to work. I feel very confident saying that. You have at least 70+% of the funds appropriated already spoken for. It's over $214 billion, I believe, covering over 1 million businesses across the country. But the speed here is important, and we've got over 5,000 lenders. And we know that from our shows and conversations with our friends in the Bankers Association, they're working very hard to make sure those dollars go out quickly. Right. So there's real progress there. But here's the problem. By this Friday, it will probably be fully subscribed. So without Congress putting more money in, this first come, first served part of this program is going to hurt a lot of small businesses that are eligible, particularly the independent contractors and the mom and pops that may not have had the deeper banking relationships that have benefited other companies.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the speed. This is your second item you talk about. You write that loan applications need to be manually entered into the E-Tran loan portal. Each one can take 25 to 75 minutes. It's evidence of major room for improvement.
It just doesn't, I don't understand it. I'm not an expert in this, but here you have banks that are using the best possible software and whatnot, and then this information has to be manually inputted into the SBA website. You know, we're no longer on DOS here. You know, let's really move at lightning speed. And I'm on a 30,000 foot level. You know, the unemployment insurance program, which provides $600 extra per worker per week, that goes out lightning fast. That's not capped. And I believe we need that same sort of structure where the dollars go out quickly and it's not capped. And, you know, to me, in different ways you can look at, you can get IRS more involved.
Right.
Maybe you get some of the state treasury offices more engaged. And I'm really speaking to more of the smaller businesses and the independent contractors that may not have the same level of banking relationships as some of the larger small businesses, where things do seem to be moving forward.
Yeah. Let's jump down to your last one then, because you just talked about being totally subscribed. Congress should appropriate more funds until all businesses who have been hurt get the relief they need.
Yeah, I don't care if it's 250 billion or 350 billion. It should be a bottomless cup of joe. Because here's the thing. I mean, we know these companies, the vast majority of which were very profitable, doing very well before this natural disaster times 100 struck. We need to bridge it. And if we can keep these companies alive for the next couple months and the employees connected to the employers, it's going to make the reopening so much more effective, and we'll get our economy back to full speed much sooner than if we just have an implosion of our small business community, which, as I said, you know, we're 30 million small businesses across America. This is the backbone of the United States of America. We have to keep them as intact as we possibly can.
Glenn, we had a call today, a regular check-in call with Senator Kyrsten Sinema. There seems to be a bipartisan desire to put more dollars into these programs. The Senate took a swing at it a few days ago, wasn't able to get it done. You want to handicap the chances that more dollars get put into the program?
100%. The question is when, and it's a race against time. You know, if the dollars come after a business has closed its doors and the workers have separated, it's a day late and a dollar short. So we appreciated the call with Senator Sinema. She supported Senator McConnell's call to get the extra $250 billion in immediately. It seems like they are moving towards a bipartisan consensus. Senator McSally wrote a column for us for our Chamber Business News earlier in the week about the importance of the Paycheck Protection Program. So there's strong bipartisan support. I expect that Congress will do the right thing and come in with funds before there's a serious problem.
Good. All right. Well, I have a feeling, Glenn, in future shows, we're going to be talking a lot about this, whether it's with the local chambers or the banking industry.
Yeah, I'll say real quickly on the emergency injury disaster loans. That's just wrong what's happened there. That was sold as a program to get $10,000 of immediate cash into struggling, dying small businesses within 3 business days. That was billed as an up to a $2 million loan. Now here's the thing. Congress has appropriated maybe 18 billion bucks. The demand is over 300 billion. So instead of companies getting an emergency grant to keep the doors open in some cases, they've been getting far less than 10,000, if getting anything at all. And the average loan that the SBA has been saying it will disperse is not 2 million or the 200 to 250,000 requested. It's 15,000. We appreciate that Senator Sinema has said on the call today that she's going to speak, I believe personally, with Secretary Mnuchin about the importance of fixing this program. And there again, I believe there's going to be a bipartisan fix.
All right, I want to move on to Courtney here because this really plays into what Glenn was just talking about. What businesses are feeling on the ground, ones who especially need help, and how they're preparing to perhaps reopen, something we'll talk about in a second. Courtney, you've got a survey going out to members and also any business who wants to complete it. What are you looking for?
Thanks, Garrick. Yeah, the media has been obviously focused on the public health numbers, and rightfully so. But we also need to focus on our economic health. We had a call with Tom Betlach today, the director of DES. We've seen that 350,000 Arizonans in the last month have filed for unemployment. Those are really high numbers. We need to figure out how to get these people back to work. So part of that, we created this survey. It only takes 5 minutes. We want businesses across Arizona to fill it out. It talks about how businesses have been impacted by COVID, what resources they're taking advantage of, if they've taken advantage of things like the Paycheck Protection Program that Glenn talked about, and what kind of considerations they have for reopening. So we're planning ahead. The planning needs to start now, and so we need to start discussing the next steps for Arizona's economy.
If you are looking for the survey, if you'd like to complete it, and you're a subscriber to our daily email, The Dry Heat, you'll get it in tomorrow's edition. It's already on the Chamber of Business News website. If you want to go there, just look for today's post from Courtney. Courtney, the thing that I'm struck by is that, and Glenn, you've had this experience, you'll talk to some members who say they've gotten their funding and it wasn't terribly complicated. You'll talk to others who've been in line for 20 days.
Well, as we were taping the show, because I haven't figured out how to stop notifications, I got an email from someone that just is very happy. She just received the PPP approval. But, you know, Courtney mentioned something very important. 350,000 Arizonans have filed for unemployment insurance in the last 4 weeks. That's about 25 times as much as the preceding 4 weeks before COVID-19 hit us. So this is why these programs are so important. I mean, we're just going to continue to see a surge of unemployment unless we're able to make those bridge programs, particularly the PPP, function. So that's why I can't wait to read tomorrow's edition of Chamber Business News, because Courtney's survey is going to be very important for our efforts.
Courtney, we did a call today, as you mentioned, with the director of the Department of Economic Security. We were saying in the virtual green room that you found Director Betlak's insight really useful, just practical information.
Definitely. His team is working around the clock. Like Glenn said, these are unprecedented numbers. I think in the height of the last recession, they received 11,000 applications. Last week alone, they received 132,000. So his team is working around the clock, and it was really good to hear what they're doing.
Yeah.
It gives me great confidence that, you know, Director Betlak is back in the saddle, one of the all-time great public officials in our state. So thank you, Tom Betlak, for coming back during a tough time.
Dusting off the Spurs, huh? Well, as we think about getting back to work, this is the third segment here. The governor is starting to talk about, what does the world look like? What does Arizona look like after April 30th? Glenn, you did a little media today on this question, and you don't have all the answers. One of the questions has been posed to you: is it going to be a phased-in approach? Are we flipping a switch? Let's start with you. I mean, how did the interviews you did today, just give us a flavor of what you've been saying to reporters?
Well, you know, the first thing that I've said is that the governor's handled the healthcare and the employment aspects of this crisis exceptionally well. We couldn't have better served with Dr. Kyrsten running the Department of Health. On the economic side, today announced really a dream team. Sandra Watson of the Arizona Commerce Authority is going to lead the business efforts, and Debbie Johnson, who runs the Arizona Office of Tourism, is going to get that part of our economy, which employs 200 to 300,000 jobs, depending on how you look at it, rocking and rolling. The first thing that we would all agree is we have to do it safely. You know, we have to make sure we're doing it in a way that doesn't cause any sort of problems to our hospitals. So there need to be benchmarks. We still have the orders in place that the governor has put into place that will last through the end of April. And, you know, we've constantly been in communication with our members, and a number of them that have operations all over the country will tell you we have best in class protocols when it comes to essential services and activities. You know, the governor has kept every bit as much of the economy open as he possibly can, and in a safe way. What I've also said is that as we move forward, you know, life is going to look, we know it's going to look different. We need to make sure that the safety of workers is taken care of, and that's for a lot of industries is going to mean a lot more PPE or personal protective equipment. We're going to have a lot of temperature checks, I would expect. We're going to have a lot more testing to to also not just whether or not you have the virus, but whether you have the antibodies. So I feel very good that with Sandra Watson, Debbie Johnson, and having, one of Arizona's all-time great business minds and Governor Doug Ducey working to getting Arizona back to work part of the equation, that we'll be in very good hands.
Courtney, this is one of the reasons why we're continuing to track survey data, even in an unscientific way, from our members, because the people that Glenn just identified, they need to know what real mom and pop businesses all the way up to the Fortune 500 are actually facing when it comes time to go back to work.
Yeah, I agree with everything Glenn said. This is going to have to be a phased-in approach, and the considerations are going to be different for every business. We're going to have childcare considerations, transportation issues, public transit issues. Some businesses might not have the customer base they used to, or the supply chains they need. So for every business, it's going to be different, and that's why we want to hear directly from businesses on what it'll take for them to get back reopened in a safe manner.
Right. I don't know what you guys think,
yeah.
But these are questions as we anticipate after April 30th. But the way that the world is working now, it's hard to tell what day it is. April 30th, is that in 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years? I can't even tell.
I have no idea what time it is. I know it's sunny outside and the weather seems to be really good. But, I think when I think about where we are right now as a state, we're dealing with an unprecedented situation, but there's also a lot of optimism about what the world will look like after we get things safely under control. I mean, there's great things happening on testing. Today at the governor's press conference, President and Dr. Bobby Robbins of the University of Arizona was talking about some of the testing things and the serology, about determining who has the antibodies and could more safely return to work. There's a tremendous amount of innovation happening even in PPE as well in Arizona. And you think about, Garrick, all the work we've done on US-Mexico-Canada agreement and the bipartisan agreement that we're bringing back the supply chain to the United States and in North America, we're pretty well positioned. So you think of driverless cars and medical devices and aerospace and you name it. I feel very good about where the state's economy will be after we get through the difficulties we're dealing with right now.
Yeah, Glenn, earlier today we did a conference call with our members, and Dr. Paul Gosar, a member of our House delegation, he's bullish like you are that there's going to be some technology, some therapeutic, something that will really help move the needle.
Yeah, no, I think every day that passes, we're making a lot of progress on the testing and on vaccines and on treatments. And I'm proud to be an Arizonan where our major research universities have made a big contribution. A lot of the major companies here have been doing great things to keep businesses going, like the Arizona Cardinals, and keeping our restaurants going. Honeywell with the N95 mask. Intel, Boeing, the list goes on and on. So, we're all working together, and we'll get to the other side of this.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you both, as always, for taking a little time at the cocktail hour to join us. Courtney, what did you think of episode 20?
I thought it was great. I think episode 2 and 20 rank really high.
Right. Right. That's right. Well, thank you for joining us. Glenn, thanks as always. We'll see you on episode 21.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.
Good night.